Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Welcome everybody to High School Basketball Weekly Special Saturday Selection Show. Tim Moy alongside of Rick Bua for this special broadcast of High School Basketball Weekly. And we want to thank you for joining us. We got some great guests here, Rick, and some calling guests, and we're going to have a great show.
This is an exciting time of year. We've been talking about this. This is what the kids play for all year long, working really, really hard in practice and in their games to get a seed, to make the tournament, and to find out where they stand. So we got a lot to talk about, so let's get going.
We certainly will. And first up on the plate for us, Rick, is the Division IV girls. The seeds have come out, and in Division IV, we see a little bit of a shakeup from what we expected. Looking at our screen here, the number one seed, a team we talked about, is Munson in the number one spot. Even though they finished with a 13-7 record, they get the number one seed.
Well, Tim, I'm going to call that the Tim Murray team. That was the team that even when we weren't showing them ranked earlier in the season or through the season, you said they're going to come on strong. They're the defending girls Division IV champions. And with their strength of schedule and the way they came on really strong with a nice winning streak towards the end, they were awarded that number one.
In number two, Ware Hopkins. And then, of course, we see a team we've talked about a little bit this year, the Mount Everett Lady Eagles from Mount Everett, number four. And what's interesting in Division IV, Rick, is you've got Munson and Mount Everett. Those two there going to look like if they're going to meet in the semifinals. And really, a lot of people think they're the two top teams in Western Mass.
Those are the two that we said that were very, very strong. There's a lot of good teams in there. 17 teams qualified in D4 for girls this year. Mount Everett, you know, we like them also with Gwen Carpenter. She got a cast of real good players around her. Then they definitely can make some noise, but I think it's wide open right now.
And Rick, right now we're pleased to have with us in studio from McCann Tech High School two players. We have Emma Marino from the Lady Hornets and Lucas Jamross from the Hornets of McCann. And we're just so delighted to have them in studio. And Emma, the McCann Tech Hornets, the Lady Hornets get a number 6 seed, well-deserved at 12-8, and that's going to give you a home game against Franklin Tech. Now, you haven't played Franklin Tech this year.
No, we haven't.
And Emma, let me ask you this. This year, and Rick, you can correct me on this, is this the first time that the Lady Hornets have had a home game in the tournament?
I don't recall the Hornets having a home game in the first round, but it's something that I know that Coach Budai has been working really hard for the last couple of years to get. They were disappointed they didn't get one last year. This could be the very first home game in a preliminary round, and it's a huge step for that program.
It absolutely is. Emma, you know, looking at the Lady Hornets and looking at Division IV, you know, we think that the Lady Hornets have had a great year. Once again, they've improved year by year. And we're looking at the teams in Division IV. We think that the McCann Hornets can go a long way. And I know you guys are playing confident basketball right now.
Yes, we are. We're definitely excited to compete in the tournament. So we're pretty excited to face Franklin Tech. We don't really know what we're looking at, but we're really excited and we're going to come out strong.
Emma, one of the things I really like about your team is that everybody on the team knows their roles. And those of us that are watching today, they know the game of basketball very, very well, and they know that it takes so much more. Rebounding, defense, passing, assists. You guys have a very good balance. You have the leadership with your seniors, your 4 seniors, and your co-captain, Aubrey Tetlow. And your scoring comes from everybody on the team, but you get a lot of help from a lot of your younger kids. You got a freshman and a couple sophomores that really help you guys out.
Yes, we do. We definitely do. Izzy Lacasse, Grace Towler, Kaylee Tatro, they're our highest scorers, and they work really hard, and they're really good at assists and defense, and it's a well-rounded program.
Right.
It's not just the shooting. You have our 4 seniors. We may not be the highest scorers, but we do rebound really well, and we try to teach the younger kids how to play defense and how to work their butts off.
Well, Emma, congratulations to the Lady Hornets for a great year so far. We're going to be covering, I think we're going to be down at McCann, Rick, hopefully, to cover that preliminary round game against Franklin Tech, and I know there'll be a big crowd down at McCann. We're going to be really happy to be there covering the Lady Hornets of McCann. On the Division IV boys side, looking at Division IV, another local team from McCann, getting the seed here in the tournament, and you look at that Division IV side, you see that the McCann Tech Hornets, they get the 11th seed here, Rick, with Ware on top. Of course, a little bit of controversy. We'll talk a little bit more about that with Drury coming into the 3 seed. I don't agree with that. I know it's the Walker system, but I've said all along, as you have agreed, Drury really, we feel, is the #1 team in Division IV.
Well, I thought Drury was going to get the 1 or 2 for sure. And, you know, the thing with the McCann Tech Hornets is they had an incredible season of 14-6. They knocked off Bay State Academy, giving them their only league loss of the season. That team only had 2 or 3 losses the entire season. Quite frankly, it was probably one of the better games that I've covered in a long time. But you just got to throw your coin in the hat and see where it comes up. And 14-6, you would have thought would get you a home game. I know the Hornets are very, very happy to be in the tournament, but they got a home game last year and had to travel to Hopkins. And this year, they had at least as good a season or maybe better. And because of that 16-team field team, Tim, they're going to have to travel.
And for the Hornets of McCann Tech, the 11th seed here at 14-6, they've also had an excellent year in their conference and in Division IV, and we're just so pleased to have with us now from the McCann Tech Hornets, Lucas Jamross. And Lucas, McCann's not going to get a home game. You're going to go on the road, and you're going to take on Granby. And this is a team, you know, they have a solid squad. They have a solid program. So you'll have your work cut out for you.
Yeah, we definitely will. We were hoping to get a home game this year, but we didn't get it, unfortunately. But to go face Granby, we're going to have to watch some film on them. We're going to have to be prepared, and we're going to have to get ready for the game.
Lucas, I said just a couple moments ago how excited I was to cover your game against Bay State. You play so well at home, and I know that Coach Bullitt has said that. You guys are just another different team at home, and I really, really wish you could have gotten that home game. But because you competed and knocked off Bay State and handled that pressure for 32 minutes, it's got to make you guys feel really good about going into the tournament. You can compete against anybody in D4.
Yeah, we definitely can. We definitely play better at home, but it's hard when you don't get a home game. We just have to keep our same mindset. We have to go there with a bunch of energy, a bunch of fans, and we have to get the win. That's the only reason.
And I'll tell you this, Lucas, looking at Division IV in the bracket side, very interesting. Possibility presents itself in Division IV with you at the 11th seed. It's possible that there could be a matchup down the road right here in North Adams between Drury and McCann. You guys could be facing off against each other, and that would be incredible.
Yeah, it really would be. We don't get to play them at all, but they're a good team. We're a good team, and we know how to play against each other. We've been playing against each other our whole lives, against Scott, Hunter, Reese, and, you know, all the guys. It'd be a fun game to play.
It'd be great for the whole community.
Absolutely. I'd love to be at that one.
Okay.
Emma, Lucas, we want to thank you for coming into the studio here on Super Seed Saturday on Northern Berkshire Community Television. And, of course, congratulations on a great year that you've had. And best of luck in the Division IV Western Mass Tournament.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Lucas Jamross and Emma Marino from McCann. And again, Rick, we just talked about a little bit, looking at that boys Division IV. Again, I have a little bit of difficulty with the Walker system because I think clearly Drury should be the #1 seed in Division IV. They've beaten Pioneer and they've played, in my opinion, the toughest schedule of any team in Division IV boys.
Agree 100%, Tim. That's why when we show on this program, and I know we favor the teams we cover, but in this particular case, I really felt the Drury was going to get the #1. And certainly, if not the #1, if Ware was going to beat them out, it was going to be the #2. I was pretty disappointed when I saw that. So, you know, Drury's going to just, Coach Reset will get the kids to work, practice as we speak. They're up there practicing right now.
Right.
And they're getting ready for, I believe, Pioneer Valley Christian, the #14 seed on Monday. But they're on a collision course with Pioneer again.
Right.
Their nemesis from the semifinals last year. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of exciting games.
And right now, we are absolutely delighted to have with us the high school sports editor from Mass Live, Meredith Perry, joining us here. Meredith, thank you very much for joining us here on Super Seed Saturday, a special live broadcast from Northern Berkshire Community Television. We're so pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to talk about the basketball postseason.
And Meredith, before we get started, we want to thank Mass Live on behalf of Northern Berkshire Community Television for the outstanding coverage of high school sports that you provide for us, especially Berkshire County sports. Sometimes we get overlooked a little bit, and we're just so delighted to have you here, and want to thank you once again for the outstanding coverage that you and your staff provide for high school basketball here in Berkshire County.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always a fun game to watch when we get out to the Berkshires.
Well, Meredith, we're going to get right into it, maybe a little bit of controversy. We just went over the Division 4 girls and Division 5 boys seedings. Of course, you were down covering this live for Mass Live. And, one of the issues, I know it's the Walker system, and you probably know the Walker system as good as anybody. But sometimes I think there needs to be an eyeball test that goes into the Walker system as well, and especially, for instance, in Division 4. I happen to believe that Drury being a 3 seed in that division is not really correct. I think they played the toughest schedule playing in Berkshire County of any team in Division 4, and they had an outstanding season. So I had disagreed a little bit with the Walker system there.
There's definitely, the Walker system absolutely has its flaws. And the biggest one is that, in theory, strength of schedule, which is one of the 3 components that make up the Walker system, is a great idea. When you look at the seedings from the other side of the state, where they do it purely based on overall record, you have a lot of quote-unquote upsets that are caused because teams are playing more challenging schedules than other teams, and then their record is worse. But the problem with a strength of schedule format is that the quality is determined by division or by an overall league, and that's not always necessarily true to form. There are Division II girls basketball teams, for example, that are not as strong as some of the Division III girls basketball teams. So if you're playing a Division III girls basketball schedule primarily, you won't have technically as strong of a strength of schedule.
Right.
And you see that with the Division IV boys. And as you mentioned with Drury, I believe they beat Pioneer Valley, the number 2 seed, pretty handily the other day. But they're still ranked below them.
Yeah, and the same thing, Meredith. We were looking at the D3 girls also, and we weren't shocked to see South Hadley get the number 1 seed, even though we had Hoosick Valley and Wacona, a couple of Berkshire teams, with a possibility of getting that, especially during the holiday tournament up here in Cheshire, where South Hadley was kind of handily defeated by both Greenfield and Hoosick Valley. So to those that don't understand the Walker system, it's really hard to understand.
Yeah,
it is hard to understand.
Yeah,
and the way that it winds up shaking out is that it's equal parts the strength of schedule, the overall record,
right,
and the record against tournament qualifiers. As far as strength of schedule, an easier way to think of it is that, for, say, playing a Division I team, you get 5 points. Division II team, you get 4 points, and so on. But yeah, you mentioned that holiday tournament, and if memory serves correct, Hoosick beat South Hadley by nearly 30 points. But South Hadley, in part because of the league that they're in, and in part because of the area that they're in, played a ton of Division I teams.
Right.
And that helps their strength of schedule, whereas Hoosick and Wacona had to play each other, and those are 2 of the best teams, even as you can see in our Mass 5 Top 20 rankings.
For sure.
Top 5 teams, and have been for most of the season.
Right.
So it definitely can get confusing there.
Yeah, it can. But looking at D3, we're going to get into D3 girls here in just a minute. But looking at the D3 girls, interesting situation there with Drury in the 8th spot there. I think that's going to be, if they can get by their first round game against Mahar, it sets up a game with South Hadley. I think that's going to be a very, very interesting contest.
Absolutely. South Hadley has a really tough player in Mia Kelly. She's their point guard. She handles the ball really well, but Brooke DeGennaro is also an impressive player, and I think that she's going to play a key role for Drury and make a name for herself in the postseason. For me, Division III is going to be one of the most entertaining of the girls' tournaments to watch because there are so many talented teams that could cause an upset, could shake things up on any given day.
Yeah, and also we could have the rubber match, the so-called third contest, if everything plays out right, between the two Berkshire Powers, Hoosick Valley and Wahconah. That would be a contest that I know a lot of people are looking forward to.
Absolutely. I mean, those were games during the regular season that we were paying attention to and kind of on the edge of our seat watching. Two teams that know each other well, two teams with a history with each other, and I think that would be an incredibly fun matchup to see at the cage.
Absolutely. Meredith, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Super Seed Selection Saturday for Northern Berkshire Community Television. Once again, we want to congratulate Mass Live and thank you for your wonderful coverage of high school sports on Mass Live.
And also, Meredith, on my behalf, in preparation for the weekly show that Tim and I do here in North Adams, a lot of my prep work comes from Mass Live. You guys do a tremendous job. I get so much information, accurate information, and we want to thank you very much for that.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys at hopefully the cage and for some fun games in the next couple of weeks.
Sounds good,
We'll
Meredith.
be sure to catch up with you. Thank you very much. It's Meredith Perry, high school sports editor for Mass Live, and Rick, they just do such a great job for us in following high school sports, and I don't know where we'd be without them, quite
Absolutely.
frankly.
No, I couldn't get the information I need. I need it from different resources, certainly the Berkshire Eagle, iBerkshires, but in particular Mass Live. I think I get more out of there than anywhere else, so our thanks to them.
Well, let's take a look a little bit closer again at the D3 girls. This, I think, is one of the most competitive divisions in high school basketball in Western Massachusetts. And there you go. You got the four top seeds. I don't think anybody questions, Rick, those teams being the top four seeds. I think there's just a question of where they should have been ranked and where they should have been placed overall.
Yeah, I don't have a problem putting Hoosick or Wahconah number one, but I thought one of those two teams would get the number one. South Hadley, because of the strength of schedule, as Meredith just talked about, I understand it, don't agree with it, but understand it. And Greenfield, it has three incredible players on that team, and they have a tremendous program and a great record, but they don't play the Berkshire County type schedule. They did play a couple of teams, D2 teams, lost to those D teams, actually, and lost to Taconic last week.
Right.
So they lost to three D2 teams. Yes, I agree, Tim. The top four are the four teams. I just thought they'd move around a little bit. I still like the Hurricanes. I still like the Wahconah Warriors.
And right now, talking about D3, we are delighted to have in studio with us three players from the Lady Hurricanes of Hoosick Valley. We have Shaylee Levesque, Sarah Field, and Riley Robinson. And ladies, we want to thank you for joining us here on Super Seed Saturday here on Northern Berkshire Community Television, and congratulate you on a great season and congratulate you on the number 2 seed in Division III Girls Western Mass Tournament. I think I want to start right off with Riley. Riley, you guys just came back from Foxborough, and that was quite a tournament you guys played down there.
Yeah, we had a really tough competition, some teams that we don't see around here, and I thought it was a good experience for our whole team, some of the younger players especially. It helped us prepare for Western Mass, and I thought it was like 2 good games to go in and say that we're like making a statement, and especially the win that we had. I thought that was a good representation of our team.
Shaylee, looking at the Division III seeds here, of course, you guys are familiar with South Hadley. You're familiar with Wahconah. You haven't played Greenfield, but you've seen them play. You've seen Hampshire, of course, at Coaches versus Cancer, Granby, Drury. You're familiar with a few teams that you guys have not faced at all. And actually, your first round game is going to be against either Sabis or Frontier. Do you know anything about those two teams?
We don't really know anything yet. I mean, Coach probably will have a scouting report or something for us to go over, but we're just going to go into every game like we usually do, just play Hoosick basketball. We just got to get the ball up and down the court, box out. We're usually undersized. We don't really have
tall girls, and so yeah, we're just gonna play Hoosick basketball.
Sarah, last year, of course, you guys in the preliminary, you got a 3 seed, and you ended up playing in the quarterfinal game at home, and you got beat by Wacona as a sophomore, as a freshman. Obviously, you were on that Western Mass tournament team. How bad do you guys want to get back to the cage?
Really bad. That's probably our number one priority right now, is to get back to the cage and win Western Mass and get back to the States.
Riley, you're looking at Hoosick Valley this year. You guys have played out of the region. You played in the Foxborough tournament, and you played a lot of teams, Division II teams, Division I teams. You've had a tough schedule, and how is Coach? Is he let up on you guys now as you're starting to prepare? You've had a long, tough season, or you're working just as hard?
Oh, no, we're working way harder. We're having some good competition coming in at practice. We have some college girls coming in, and we're competing against some. A lot of full court, a lot of yelling from Coach Ron, but it's only making us better, and he's pushing us, and he just wants the best for us, and we appreciate it.
Well, ladies, we're going to be there. Your game will be against either Savas or Frontier, and that's going to be on March 1st. And Northern Berkshire Community Television will be there to cover it. We want to wish you the best of luck in the Western Mass tournament, and of course, congratulations on another outstanding season for Hoosick Valley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My best to you, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Riley Robinson and Shaylee Levesque and Sarah Field from the Lady Hurricanes of Hoosick Valley. And Rick, once again, you look at the Division III girls tournament. I think one of the most interesting games in that tournament is going to be the possibility that Drury, if they can get over that 8-9 game against Mahar, that game against South Hadley, I think they can play with South Hadley.
Well, it's not like we looked into a crystal ball, but you and I kind of talked about this at our most recent show, and it wouldn't be the worst thing for Coach Downey. At least he's getting one home game. If he can take care of business against Mahar, then it gets you always have a chance if you're a Berkshire County team. Drury did show this year, Tim, they could really hang with a lot of the teams from the north.
Right.
They split with Monument, almost snuck one out over Wacona, lost in overtime.
Right.
Gave Pittsfield all they could do until the last couple minutes when Lexi Garvey took over. They just couldn't finish against the north teams, but they competed. And if you can compete against the north, then you can do well. And should do well should they win and go to South Hadley.
And there's just no question about it. And Meredith Perry diplomatically referred to it. There's no question that Berkshire County girls high school basketball, there's no question that was the North Division and Berkshire County in general was the toughest basketball in Western Mass, top to bottom.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you could say the same thing for girls and boys in Berkshire County North. It's just incredible. You've got your D1 teams over there in the suburban, I believe, or the valley, but the D1 schools, the Putnams and the Centrals and so on, could be the very toughest and are the top of the Mass Live top 20. But in Berkshire County, you take a look at the teams that have qualified, and they're very, very, very strong here in Berkshire County.
Take a look quick at Division III boys before we get to our next guest. And in the Division III boys, this pretty much is this is the one division I kind of agree with. The only team I think got a little bit of the short end of the stick on this one are the Wacona Warriors. But there's no question Savas at 16-4. They have the real good big man. They deserve the number 1 seed with the quality of the schedule that they play.
Well, this was a different type of year for them because a lot of times we're talking about them at 10-10 or
Right.
9-11 and getting a very high seed with that Walker system. And they deserve it. They have earned it with those quality wins against the bigger schools down there. They've taken care of business. They deserve the number 1. Frontiers had a great season. Narragansett, that's that team that we talk about on our show every Wednesday, Tim, from Central Mass that has to go to Western Mass for the tournament. The Wacona Warriors are the team that I know the best. Monument Mountain has a couple of their kids back. Noel Powell and Deanne Brown are both healthy and playing again, and they were tremendous before those kids missed a few games with injuries. So wide open. Savas, the heavy favorite, however.
No question. Well, now we're pleased to have in studio with us a guest that we've been trying to get him all year long here on High School Basketball Weekly, but he's graciously given of his time to join us here on Super Seed Saturday, and that is former Hoosick Valley Boys head coach Bill Robinson. And Coach, thank you so much for joining us here and allowing us to get your feedback on the Seeds as you see it right now.
Well, first of all, before I begin, I want to thank you guys for I just saw on the replay of the Drury Hoosick Boys game today that it was the NBCTC's 10th year doing games, and they did a nice little ceremony for Rick and John that night and Joanne. Congratulations, guys. You do a great job. And
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
This is awesome.
Thank you.
It was touching.
All right, let's get into the real meat of it here, the Seeds. Really looking, the one that strikes me out, again, just taking up the Division IV boys for a minute, it's just hard for me. I understand the Walker system, but by goodness, it's hard for me to believe that Drury is the 4 seed in that division. I mean, the 3 seed, excuse me.
Yeah, 3 seed, Tim. I think the question becomes with the Pioneers 17-3, Wares 18-2, just maybe a little bit too much for Drury's 15-5. However, if you go look at the schedules, at least I looked at Pioneers and Drury. Pioneer played 11 Division IV games, I believe, this year.
Right.
Drury had their share as well. They played 8, but 8 to 11, that's a big difference. And they talk about strength of schedule. I would think that Drury's strength of schedule would still be better than that of Pioneers. Ware's schedule was a little bit better than I thought it was. They played a lot of Division III schools and above, actually. And so, 18-2 with the schedule they played, I can see that they're there where they are. But that Pioneer game really bothers me, and I got news for you. I wouldn't want to be Pioneer seeing Drury.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's also interesting on the D3 girls side. I think that the 4 teams that are in the top 4 seeds in the girls, they are probably, for all intents and purposes, the top 3 teams, top 4 teams in Division III. I just disagree with how they're matched up. I don't think there's any question when you look at those 4 teams that the team that played the toughest, most demanding schedule night in and night out was Hoosick Valley, I just think that, as Rick said, either Hoosick or Wacona should be the 1 or 2 seeds, and South Hadley, I think, should be the 4 seed in that group.
I heard you guys talking earlier, and I'm kind of speechless by the whole thing. I watched South Hadley play in December up at Hoosick Valley against both Greenfield and Hoosick, and I think they lost those 2 games by a combined score of 70 points. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't something that you could take away and say, wow, the South Hadley team's going to be pretty tough down the road. To their credit, they've made a nice run. They are 15-5, but I heard you guys speaking earlier, and I do believe that the Drury Blue Devil girls have a absolute opportunity to knock that team off in the second round if they get past Mahar.
Absolutely. Looking at it, it sets up for an interesting game into the D3 seeds, and I think another game, and I'd like you to comment on the girls' side, is the 3-6 game, Granby and Wacona. Of course, Granby with Nora Young, one of the outstanding players in Western Mass. Tough task for them to go to Wacona, but they're a solid squad.
Well, 2 things you want to recall here. They've already gone to Wacona early in the year, and they lost that game. I believe it was like 58-19, and they played without their point guard, Kaylee Croto, who was out with concussion. She is back now, and a point guard can make a world of difference to a team, especially against a Wacona 1-3-1 zone. Not to mention the fact that you do have Nora Young inside, who will cause headaches for Wacona. So that game, I don't believe, will be 58-19 this time around. Matter of fact, I think you're going to have a real close ball game right up into the 4th quarter, and we'll see what happens from there. But Granby's got to be pretty happy with that game, because Wacona's not a type of team that presses and runs the floor a lot as a South Hadley and or a Hoosick Valley team and a Greenfield team. So that they really got a break, I believe, by getting to go play that slower tempo Wacona club.
Coach, question, you know the girls so well now, especially following the Hurricanes. Coach Liz Kay got back a key senior recently in Cassie Tobler, and I'm not sure how healthy she is, but she's got to make the world of difference with the Steinman girl, with Furlong, and with Gambaroni. That's a pretty good ball club she's got down there.
She got a real good club, and they do what they do real well. They play that 1-3-1 zone. They're long on the wings. They've got now, Abby Steinman and Cass Tobler now to offset that middle. Yeah. So they just got longer with Cass coming back into the lineup. And then Maria on top is just a pest all over the floor. So they're really, really good at what they do, and not everybody else around does it. So teams don't see that 1-3-1 zone. It really causes problems for teams when they see it for the first time. But again, Granby has seen it once this year, and Tom Burke's a savvy veteran coach.
Yep.
So he will be prepared. That game's going to be a very interesting battle, I believe.
D3 boys for a minute, a division that you've had a lot of familiarity with during your coaching days. This year, and every year you used to tell me, it doesn't matter what Savitz's record is, they're going to get the number 1 seed, and they'd be the number 1 or the number 2 seed with barely 500 record. This year, they had a real good season. This is a real solid club, and I think they deserve the number 1 seed. I think the team that could challenge them and give them the most trouble are the Wahconah Warriors. But they got the number 5 seed, interestingly, and I think they kind of got the short end of it. I think they should have been at least the 4 seed and probably even higher in that competition.
And I think what happened was they lost their last game to Pittsfield High School. I think that really knocked them down a spot or 2 in the seedings, where if they had won that game, they might have held on to a 3 or at least a 4. But either way, 4 or 5, you're gonna play Sabas in that second round or that third round in the semifinals. The 4-5 game though is different because you have to travel to the 4's home site rather than having that game at home. So, but Wahconah travels well. They're a tournament-tested team. They've always played Sabas well in the tournament. They've knocked them off a few times, if memory.
Right.
Yeah. So they're for real. Waconah's are, they're in that mix. But there's some good teams out there. East Hampton can get up and down the floor a little bit. They got the big kid this year, Ronan Motter inside. He's a good player. But Waconah's got 3 or 4 of those guys inside. They're going to be a tough out. They always are with their mix of zones, and from what I see now, playing a little man-to-man.
Coach, we talk a lot on this show about some of the teams from the Central Mass area that play in the tournament in the Western Mass. Mass Live doesn't cover them per se like they do with the Western Mass teams. We're talking about Murdoch and North Brookfield, Sizer, and Narragansett. Who gets the short end of the deal for those schools when they primarily play, in Central Mass and then have to come here?
You want me to answer this honestly, Rick? I have no idea
Coach, sure.
why they're out here. I really have no idea.
Yeah.
Why bring?
Is it harder for them to prepare? Is there game films? Is it harder for the Western Mass team?
Yeah,
because they've never seen them. Or
it's harder to prepare for teams. But when they have made the tournament, not many of those teams have had much success in our tournament. So and I think Narragansett had a good run last year, and Wahconah got them in the end or something.
Okay. Yep.
But these other schools haven't really made an impact. So it's unfortunate, but they really should be playing that Central Mass. And I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll
I
tell
agree.
you, being in that Central Mass, Western Mass game a few times, those Central Mass teams don't always stack up to what you think they might be as well.
Yeah.
And it's usually, in most cases, an easier game than a Western Mass final.
Right. Coach, you've talked, and of course you've coached and you know this. We talk a lot on High School Basketball Weekly, and there's a lot of focus on star players. And of course, there are a lot of great players in Western Mass, both boys and girls. But when it comes down to tournament time, teams that tend to do well and tend to advance get big contributions from key players. And we've focused, we've got some graphics on some players that we think are the key players, and we're going to start in Division 4. And it's not necessarily the players you think. In Division 4, especially the Division 4 boys, you look at them, and I think for Drury, of course, they got the 2 big wheels and Reese Reset and the McGuire kid. But, Hunter Sarkis, he is their outside shooter. He is a guy that can open up things for the other players if he shoots the ball well. But talk a little bit about key basketball players and how important they are in a tournament.
I don't disagree with you with Hunter stretching the floor for Drury, creating more space for Scott and Reese to get inside. However, I think the important piece of Drury's game has got to be rebounding throughout the tournament. So the Max Dohertys of the world have to really step up and do that job for Drury. Very, 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 very key that they do that, because if teams can dominate the glass on Drury and it's one shot and out for Drury, you know, they could struggle. They could struggle. That's their only Achilles heel is their size.
Right.
But, you know, they got guys. I know Scott and Reese get up very well for their size, but if they need a third wheel to get in there and rebound, I would say more the front line of Drury,
Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And Max Doherty are two key and more important pieces for Coach Reset.
And Coach Reset has been bringing along very, very slowly Tim Brazo, his freshman.
Yep.
He's he's young. He's young, but he's got potential. He's going to be a very, very good basketball player up at Drury. But he may play a key role somewhere along the line here.
Rick,
very well could. Yep.
Rick, on the D4 girls side, I know Coach hasn't seen a lot of it, but we have D4 girls side. I think that for McCann, the Lady Hornets, they've got some players that are going to have to step up if they want to get down the road.
Yeah, they do. And you know, one of them was here today, and that's the captain, Emma Marino and Aubrey Tetlow. They have the leadership. They certainly do everything else. And Emma said we're relying on our scoring from a freshman and two sophomores, Grace Towler, Kaylee Tatro, Izzy Lacasse. So they're going to have to get some points from their captains and maybe a role player off the bench. And going right back to what Coach Robinson was talking about with Drury, he's absolutely right. You know, Coach Reset cannot afford to get into half-court offense with anybody. Their MO is up the floor fast. If he could play every game like he played against Coach Hart's Hurricanes last week, he would love that, because they want to get into a track meet, and that's what Drury wants. So these key players, Lucas Jamros was with us today. He's another one, too.
Right. On the D3 side, we've identified some key players, and Coach has already talked about one of them. I think for this lineup of girls, Allison Felix at Drury, Riley Robinson, you know, the real engine that makes that Hoosick defense go, and Wakona Noel Furlong, Kaylee Croto, Katie Hazelton from Greenfield. Coach, those are quite a list of outstanding, excellent players in their own right, and I think these teams need these players to step up in the Western Mass Tournament.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think a few on that list definitely need to play a little bit over their heads, if you will, or at least get to a consistent level for their teams to move forward. It's very important to have three dependable bodies that can score for you in the tournament, because defenses are going to be out to shut some people down. They're going to be out to shut your best player down, second best player down, whatever it is, and it's going to fall on the shoulders of somebody else. And you know, the list that you have there, they're capable of doing it.
They absolutely are. These are the players in their own right. We focus on other players at times on these teams, but these players in their own right have had great seasons, and you need people to step up, and we're looking forward to that. That's for sure. We want to thank all our special guests, Rick, who have joined us here on
Absolutely.
Super Seed Saturday. We want to thank Peter Gentile, our producer, director, our interns from MCLA, helping to put together this special show. We're going to be rebroadcasting this show on Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So if you know anybody that missed it today and wants to see it on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock, I'm sorry. And of course, simulcast on 107.1 WMNB FMLP. You can listen to us on that one as well. We're looking forward to a lot of outstanding high school basketball coming up in the week ahead, Rick, and we're going to be covering as much of it as we can.
We're going to cover as many local games as we possibly have crews for, and hopefully we'll get down to the cage again. Northern Berkshire Community Television has got a long, outstanding run, consecutive years of going to the cage, and a lot of times it's with 2 or 3 teams.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll get a couple of the teams back there again this year, and we're looking forward to it.
We
good luck to the Lady Hornets, and and the McCann boys, Coach Chris Bullitt, to Coach Jack Brissett, and Coach Ian Downey's jury team, and of course Coach Ron Wojcik, who's the Valley Hurricanes. Best of luck at the tournament.
And we want to thank especially former head coach Bill Robinson for coming in and giving us his insight on this Western Mass tournament upcoming. His insight is always greatly appreciated. Enjoy high school basketball. We're down to the nitty-gritty, Rick. We're going to see some great action in the next week. And you can join us here on High School Basketball Weekly each week to catch up on all the results.
Yeah, support your local team. They need your support. Pack the gymnasiums. It's going to make home court makes a world of difference.
Thank you and goodbye from Northern Berkshire Community Television.
Thanks, everybody. So long.